talking about biblical femininity, spiritual alignment, and what it really looks like to walk with God through the hard and the holy parts of marriage and just femininity. And my special guest today, I'm so excited, you guys, is Cara. She's been married for 18 years to her husband, Adam, and they have 5 beautiful children. And they live in a homestead in Missouri, which is literal goals, y'all. I'm telling you. After walking through so many deep valleys of healing in her own marriage, God really placed it on her heart to help other women do the same. And now she's a total rock star, leads women through courses and coaching and master classes and her podcast, Marriage Unmasked, all to help women really heal and reconnect with who God made them to be. So let's dive straight in. Cara, I am so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here and talk with you. I always look forward to chatting with you, so this is awesome.
Before we dive into all the goodness, can you just introduce yourself to our listeners and share just a little bit about who you are and what you do in your world?
Yeah, so you said it so well. I am a marriage and femininity coach, and I walk with women who are really in pain in their marriage. They are struggling, and it's a beautiful honor to be able to walk with them through that. I can relate because I myself have walked through a lot of pain in our marriage, and God has done so much healing in me and is still continuing to. And so it's a very open, vulnerable space. I love speaking truth and life into them and just bringing them closer to God's love for them. That's really my goal.
I think what's powerful is that your ministry was born from your own healing, from what I know about your story. And what was that process like for you? Was there this moment where you just knew that God was calling you to walk with other women through what you've been through?
Yeah, I always knew like we have like it's not like we struggle with our marriage for like a year or two. It was years and years and years and years and years. And so I always had this feeling that God was going to use our pain for more than just us, right? He was going to use our growth for more than just us. And so I wanted to kind of take the reins on that, like, okay, well, I'm going to start a marriage group or but then I was like, no, I'm just going to wait on God and see what He has. And then it's a funny story. My husband and I, we were actually driving through the mountains of Arkansas. We were on a little getaway, and God just spoke so powerfully to both of us that He wanted us to create this Healing Your Marriage course that we had created. And He wanted us to start walking with couples who were struggling. And so we just jumped in with both feet and began.
Sometimes you just have to do that. When the Lord speaks and you moves, you just got to move with them. I love that. And you've worked with so many women and couples in this space. I'm just so curious to know more. What are some common struggles you see wives facing in their marriages today? And how do you see like God's truth meeting them in the middle of that?
Yeah. There's just so much pain, so much hurt inside of them, and that sometimes that comes out in resentment. I see a lot of wives who are holding in resentment, bitterness, and those are words. They sound kind of harsh, but it's kind of like a symptom of the pain, right? And it comes out in these ways that we don't know what to do with that, right? We might feel resentment, just don't know how to heal that. We don't know how to move forward. They desire that, but it can be really hard to know how to walk through that pain and heal those hurts. And so that's one of the things that I see with women a lot. And really it's just inviting them into, hey, it's okay. It's okay to be honest with God about that, and let Him know, yeah, I do have resentment. I am angry. I'm frustrated that my marriage is here. All right. All these things I walk them through, like, talk that out with God, because all He has for you is love. He just loves you. He meets you there every single time. He stays present with you, and He offers you the healing that you need. And so it's God, right? He's the one moving. He's the one doing the incredible work of healing that hurt.
I feel so heard in what you're sharing. This is so similar to some of the work I do. It's like, let's just get real with the Lord and let's invite Him into this space and not be afraid to put language to the emotions and things that we're experiencing because they're real. And let's invite God into that pain, that resentment, that bitterness, because He already knows that it's there. So let's invite Him in, and He's the one that can really bring healing. And I love that so much. And something that I'm curious about is Christian couples. Do you feel like Christian couples often will go and find true healing and reconciliation in church, or are you finding that a lot of the couples that come to you, they've gone through therapy, or they've done the steps and they're like, this is our last resort, or what do you find is a real commonality in what you do?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people they've tried, and we also, that was our story. We talked to our pastors. We reached out for help, and we just weren't getting the, no one was talking about inner healing. No one was talking about masculine and feminine dynamics, and no one was talking about this stuff. It was just like, go back to the Bible, which is great, right? But go back to like, wives, submit to your husbands, husbands love your wives, and that was, kind of like, do this, do that. It's, telling somebody, do this, do that. It's like putting a band-aid on it, right? Like there's something deeper there. And that's what needs to be healed. And that's the work we do with couples, is like, let's get deeper. Let's dive under the surface, under that pain. And I think that's what's really powerful.
It's unspoken, especially in the modern day church, inner healing, and I found that often what or women on that journey of healing, what they'll be met with is cliches of just, oh, you need to have more faith, or you just need to pray about it more, and sometimes that can cause more pain to hear that. And what if someone does have faith or does believe, but they need something deeper? They don't need a band-aid on a bullet hole. They just need someone to walk the day-to-day journey with them. And I think the work that y'all are doing is so needed and so important, not just for, the female and the male, but also in marriage. It's such a special space that you guys are really operating in, that God has called you to. I want to shift gears a little bit to talk more about femininity. And this is something that you teach with such clarity and love. How would you define biblical femininity? And what do you think is like often misunderstood, even in Christian circles, about femininity?
I mean, I think it's hard for me to define it, but I will try. But I first want to talk about what I think a lot of women think, that it's silence, right? It's being quiet. It's just letting your husband kind of take over, take the space, right? And whatever he says goes. It's, I think sometimes women think it's dresses and, looking feminine, which there's nothing wrong about, feeling beautiful and feeling feminine. That's beautiful, right? But it's so much deeper than that. Again, it's the depth. To me, biblical femininity is this beautiful surrender. It's this, and it's not always beautiful, right? Sometimes it's really hard. But the I think the picture of what God has for us in surrender is beautiful. It's relaxing relaxing into his strength, right? He is really such a perfect picture of
Mm,
masculinity, because he's always strong for us, he's always stable for us, he's perfectly protecting us. And so when we can surrender into, like, yes, that is who you are, God, and I will relax into you, I can trust you fully, that to me is this beautiful picture of biblical femininity.
mm, I love that. And I think that when we're talking about masculinity and femininity, when we think about the Lord and his strength, it provides this sense of safety for us as females of, you are someone, God, worthy of submission. You are someone who has established that safety for me. And so relinquishing, submitting, letting go, and giving up that control, that desire to lead is easy because I know your nature. I know your character, Lord. And so releasing that and coming into alignment of submission is easier because you know who you are following, who is leading. And I think that a lot of women will want to take the reins of control because there's a lack of safety, there's a lack of understanding of, I can't trust these men or people or the Lord because I don't know who they are, if they are worthy of me submitting to. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much about safety, and for me, that is my journey as well. I was just having some deep intimacy with God yesterday about this very topic, and so it was just so good. But I had this story in my head from little on, that I will not allow myself to be hurt by men, and that story over and over again has led to me trying to control. It's led to me really stepping out of my femininity. And God was just showing me again, as He's so faithful to do, like He showed me this beautiful picture of Him holding this shield, and there was fire on the other side, and He was holding the shield and I was behind Him. And the message that He wanted me to hear was like, you don't have to go first, right? You don't have to hold the shield. I hold the shield. You come behind me where you're safe, right? You can always trust me to be there, and lead the way in that. And it was just such this beautiful picture for me. But yes, I mean, so many times it's the missing piece of safety in a marriage that really causes a wife to go back to that control again and really try to make herself feel safe, and which is totally understandable.
Yeah, totally understandable. I think we often miss going through the layers and really understanding what's going on, maybe in a marriage, in a relationship dynamic, or even within ourselves, because we will take things at face value. For example, if a woman is categorized or seen as like overbearing or masculine or aggressive, she is those things. And I think often we will miss what's happening underneath the surface. Underneath all those layers is a little girl who just doesn't feel safe, and her anger is her protector. It's the thing that is helping her feel safe. And I think we will miss the reality that there are deeper things going on with us. And so that's why the work that you do is so beautiful. And, I think we often overlook that those things will come up, and we villainize our emotions. We villainize our anger, our aggression, because maybe that we don't understand and we have that disconnection. And I think many of us are walking around in life and in relationships just disconnected from ourselves and from others and from the Lord. And if we just were to get that, reestablish that connection, we will find that we feel safe and we will show up in our relationships different and truly our most feminine selves. And I think that it's such a simple thing, but we tend to overlook it so often.
I mean, and it changes. So I always talk about femininity as this way of being. It's not like necessarily something that you do. There's not a checklist like, here's how to be feminine, right? Do this, wear that, don't do that, but it's really this way of being that posture of femininity happens when we know how loved we are, when we know how cared for we are by God. When we start to invite that compassion and love into ourselves, and we agree with that love that God has for us, right? We're like, I know how much you love me, and I'm going to also love myself that way as well, because that love is what heals, right? God is love, and that love heals all these wounds that we have, whether it's from childhood or whether these wounds have come in our marriages.
So good. I love that. And I know that there's definitely someone who's listening to this right now who may be questioning if, healing is for me, or maybe they're feeling unseen or stuck or in shame, or maybe her marriage is on the brink and she feels like, no one sees the tears that she cries behind closed doors. What would you speak over her today?
The first thing I would say is just your pain does matter. God sees it all, and He is not for 1 second left you alone in this. He's going to use this for a deeper purpose. You can rest in Him. You can come to Him. I always suggest, starting with just building that relationship with God again, because I know for myself, even I realized I was struggling with trusting God after some of the pain that I've walked through in life. I didn't understand. God, why don't you take this away? I know you can. Why, after years and years and years of the same thing, why don't you take this away? And I started to really have a distrust of God, that He was really good, that He really loved me. What kind of God, loving God doesn't actually take pain away when He can, right? That doesn't make sense to our brains. But that we don't understand Him. We don't see the whole picture. And that's what I've had to just continually ask God, how are you loving me today? How are you my safe place today? Right? And I would encourage a wife who is in that deep pain, start crying out to God and asking Him, identify what your feelings are, and then identify what is your biggest need, and ask God, how are you meeting that need for me today? because he wants to show you. He wants to love you. He wants to come in and fill that emptiness in your heart and bring that healing to you. He really does. Your relationship with him matters more than even your relationship with your husband. And so to start there with that and rebuild that beautiful relationship with God again, it's going to help you to show up in your marriage in a completely different way. And it's going to help you to feel, just to accept and really take in that love that God has for you.
Just asking God those questions is such a beautiful way. Even if you have to do it every day, I think that is it continuously puts us back in our rightful place of like, Lord, you are the head. Lord, like, remind me of who you say that I am, who you are to me, God. And that reminder builds such trust and connection. And we need that reminder. I think oftentimes women who are hurting, or even couples who are hurting that are wrestling, they don't need to learn anything new. I think they just need to be reminded of what they already know. Sometimes we forget so easily. And that's why walking this journey with somebody like a coach, like yourself, is really all that's needed, is knowing that we're not alone on this journey, and we need to be reminded of the truth that's in our head, but we need someone to kind of pull it back up front to remind us of that. I love that so much. And when we're talking about inner healing, I feel like that phrase can tend to sound a little vague, especially for someone who's just getting started. What does it look like practically to start that inner healing? Like, where can someone begin on that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that really the place to start is, let's say that you are in a really, like, something happened in your marriage or in your life, right? And you're having big emotion. Maybe you're really angry, or you're really frustrated, or you're really sad. And just to start, first of all, start with just giving yourself love and compassion. I know this might sound a little silly, but I honestly will talk to myself as if I'm talking to one of my kids, right? And like, I love you. I love you, Cara. I'm so sad that you're feeling sad. But I understand why you're feeling that way. That makes sense that you're feeling sad, because I can see that, this happened. Validating, offering yourself love and validation and compassion. And then I like to ask myself, what is this reminding me of? But what is this bringing me back to? Because a lot of times the pain that we're experiencing is a trigger for something, some traumatic things that have happened. And we have this stored trauma in our bodies. And just to kind of, I know it's not fun. It's not my favorite thing to do, but to kind of go back, right? And then that, for me, a lot of it is in my childhood, because I was in a very abusive family. And to come talk to that little girl and see her in that situation and offer her that love and compassion and validation that she didn't get, that helps with healing that. And again, it's agreeing with God's love. That's what he's saying to you. And I'll ask him, even like, where were you, God? Right? Where were you when I was feeling that? And hear what he has to say, right? God was there. It's not that he left you alone. It's not that he just was standing there like some silent bystander, just like, well, figure it out, and just kind of inviting him into that process. I think that really, because we have these needs, right? Humans have needs. It is a totally normal thing. And to ask him to help meet those needs, and then meeting those needs, yourself as well. You can do that.
I think that for some that's going to sound so like revolutionary, like, oh wow, we have needs, and it's okay, we can give ourselves permission to meet those needs, or ask God to help partner with us to meet those needs. And I think self-compassion is the key to so much freedom and healing. And I think we overlook it because as women, culture and society tells us that we need to operate in these roles and to be everything to everyone, or be this like boss babe who, never rests. And there's all this pressure and expectation on us. Where's the room for self-compassion in this world that we live in? And so this idea of showing yourself a little bit of grace, the same grace that was given to you already by God, show a little bit to yourself. Let's take you off the hook this once and allow you to just speak to yourself. I love that. I do that as well. Ministering to the most hurting parts of ourselves and realizing that they're the ones that need the most love, the most comfort, the most compassion, because they're in pain, they're hurting. And I want to be curious about, in marriage, those parts of you that are hurt, that have gone unhealed or unprocessed. I'm sure that women will get triggered because maybe they either, one, their heart feels safe enough to release that pain, or it's triggering an old wound. I would assume that compassion is needed more than ever in that type of space.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think a lot of times we think, and I used to do this myself to my husband, but a lot of times, especially if you've grown up in the church, you may have this idea of like behaviorism where it's like that was a wrong behavior and so I need to punish that, or that I need to shame that, I need to whatever, right? And so if our husband does something, we're like, okay, well then you don't get this, or I'm not going to talk to you, or all right, there's a wall up, I'm not going to let you affect me anymore, and we close off our hearts. And really that's what that is. It's like this, and it's not like you're necessarily, this is subconscious a lot of the time, but it happens, and we have to look at what are our beliefs about that. The thing that I really believe though is that when we do make a mistake, when we hurt our spouse, out of our own wounds, we react in a way that causes pain. What we don't need in that moment is for them to try to punish us or try to bring some kind of criticism or anything like that. What we really need most is love, right? That's what we need. And that's what God offers us. And when we can finally see, God is not up there saying, you need to do this, you need to be better. You need to be more like Jesus every single day, right? God is not shaking his finger at us, asking us to constantly do better. He loves us. He wants relationship with us. He wants that intimacy. And so he's loving us. And yeah, sometimes he lovingly corrects us, but it's never this like, all right, you're a bad girl. And so this is what's going to happen to you, right? It's always from love. And so, yeah, when we feel so loved by God, that outpours onto our spouse. And so even if they do offend us, even if they do something that hurts us, we then, if we're full, right? If we're full of God's love, that outpours onto them, instead of when we are empty and our spouse hurts us, we're grasping to feel better. We're grasping for them to meet our needs. And that can then show up as, like I was talking about before, the criticism and the, okay, well, you're not good enough. I can't believe you did that, whatever, right? It comes out in these really unhealthy, unloving ways.
I think it would even put even a bigger need and emphasis on being rooted in Christ's love and using that as our source. And it's like a non-negotiable to stay connected to his love so that when those moments of conflict do come up, we can tap into that love, and our reserves of love and grace and mercy or forgiveness or whatever's needed in that moment isn't ever dry. And not to say that we won't have moments where we react as a human, but there's just such a necessity to stay connected to him and his love and be really rooted in that as an individual. And because in marriage, I could understand there could be a lot of codependency there. And so you see that coming up as like a common
Yes.
theme with the women that you work with, is codependency and reliance on their husband rather than reliance on the Lord.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it bounces. It often bounces. They're either in that codependency where they are so frustrated that their husband is not meeting their need. Maybe it's their need for safety, their need for feeling cherished and seen, feeling heard, right? And then sometimes they bounce from that codependency to this independence where it's like,
Mm,
okay, I don't need you. I take care of myself. I don't need, I don't want to be around somebody who makes me feel this way, right? If you're not going to meet my needs,
mm.
I don't need you at all, right? And so it's this balancing, I think it happens for everybody, right? It's that we want to get to this place of interdependence where we're going to God to get our needs met, but yet we're still able to allow ourselves to meet our needs as well in a moment, right? But we don't rely on them. We're not just needing them to meet our every need for us to
Mm.
be okay.
Yeah. So that honestly makes me question. I want to ask you, for women who are not married or single or engaged, preparing for marriage, what would your advice be, knowing that you work with couples and the common conflicts and patterns that people fall into? What would be your biggest piece of advice or encouragement to work on in a season of singleness and things that really are important that maybe we would overlook otherwise?
I mean, I think that it's just, developing this beautiful relationship with God where you're not, because I think sometimes in singleness you can feel like you need a man. It's not like it's a wrong thing to desire a husband or desire, but um, you don't want to feel like you are not going to be okay if you don't have a husband, right? Because you want to be so connected to what God is, how He is providing for you, and how He loves you so perfectly that when you do come to a relationship, your needs, you know how to get your needs met. And you're not coming to them to, hey, I need you because I need you to fill my needs for me. Because you're going to be disappointed. You just are. We cannot fill each other's needs perfectly. It's just not, that's not how we were made. We were designed for God to, He's the only one, right? He's the only one who can meet our needs. Perfect.
He is the only one that can meet our needs. He is perfect and he's the source. I love that, and it really informs us of when we're connected with him. I think that it tethers us to this truth of what we actually need versus what we want. And I think when we're connected to him, there's a set level of clarity as well. And I think that when we're not walking in partnership with the Lord, we can tend to get like shiny object syndrome and things that sound really good, whether it's like marriage, of like, wow, this is a really good thing, but it can tend to become an idol, or things that can cause us to have distractions. Maybe we can be in the right place, but coming from the wrong reasons, right? And so I think there's this layer of like just being in relationship with the Lord by its nature brings clarity and peace and truth. And so when we work on these things in the season of singleness in partnership with the Lord, it really simplifies things, because you know you realize, okay, I want what God's heart wants. I want a man who knows that he can only get his needs met from the Lord as well. And so as a byproduct of just purely pursuing him and pursuing the truth that he has to offer us, all of these other things kind of just fade away, and we won't get distracted so easily by things that were never meant for us by God. And we can approach either singleness or whatever stage of life that we're in a marriage with just clarity, and all that extra noise kind of dissipates. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that another reminder too, just for marriage, or even if you are single, is just you're also not going to find the perfect spouse, right? And marriage is really, it is really a growth relationship. It is a relationship that, when you're married 5 years, maybe even like 1 year, you're not married to the same person that you were the day you said I do. And so it is a commitment to grow together. I think that's how I would explain it, because it isn't going to be this roses and perfect little happy, happily ever after. Not that it isn't beautiful and joyful and so wonderful. God has so many good gifts for us in it, but it is also really, honestly, you're healing and you're growing together in a very intimate way that you don't do with other people. And so it is very challenging. But the goal, I think, is that together you can support each other in that growth and in your healing. So you don't feel like you have to come to a marriage either fully perfectly healed, or that you have to find a spouse who's fully perfectly healed, right?
I love that you said that. It definitely adjusts our expectations on the journey too, that there's no such thing as the perfect spouse, whether it be you or, your partner. And I think that there's a level of freedom, and it almost like gives us permission that it's okay to be in an ongoing process of healing, that you don't have to show up all cleaned up and good enough to be a wife. And I love that. It's almost like dispelling this myth that I've come up against a lot in church communities and circles of friends, and this pressure to be the perfect wife or the perfect mom and the perfect Christian woman, Proverbs 31, and what was initially designed by God as a blessing and parameters for us to thrive as females has often been twisted into a burden, I have found, that keeps so many women trapped in this expectation, this box of if you're anything outside of perfection, then you're somehow failing or you're not enough or you're too much. Do you see that coming up in any of your clients that you've worked with or just in your own life?
Well, I definitely felt it in my own life. I remember talking to my husband one day and bringing up the Proverbs 31, and I was like, is this even like, what is this? What is this chapter? No woman can ever do this. And actually, it's funny because when he asked me to marry him, he had Proverbs 31 in the ring box, like he printed it. So I maybe felt a little extra pressure to like, okay. But anyways, it's not that he was putting that on me. He really wasn't. He just, I don't know why he put that in the ring box, but it's a well-known thing. And we actually have grown so much in our spiritual relationship with God. When we first got married, we were both very caught up in like religion and doing the right things. And I mean, a lot of our healing has come from actually wounds with church, like things we learned from the church. And that's one of the big ones that, I have to be good enough. I have to be perfect. That's a message. When I was younger, my whole Bible was underlined like the law. All the law was underlined because I was always like, okay, what do I have to do? What else should I be doing? I didn't really care about God's love. I was like, yeah, okay, he loves me, but I got to be working on this, right? I got to be, and I just miss all of it. And so it's just been such a beautiful process how God has been drawing me closer to Him and bringing opportunities for me to learn a different way and learn more about who He really is. But I definitely struggle with that. And I see wives who struggle with it so much. And a lot of times, the wives who are struggling with that, they're silent about their marriage. Because what that brings, that I'm not enough, I'm not the perfect wife, that brings shame.
Yeah.
And that's not from God. And shame leads us to silence. It leads us to isolation. And so those wives are alone in their struggles, which is so painful. But they feel so embarrassed to bring it up. They don't want to talk about it because then that would just feed the shame and feed the story that they're not enough and they're not a good enough wife. And it just breaks my heart.
I can't help but wonder how many women, either in their singleness or in their marriage, are wrestling with shame silently. And that there's shame there to begin with, but then shame to reach out and ask for help because somehow that may be combating this belief that if you ask for help, there's something wrong with you or you're bad or wrong. And that just breaks my heart to hear that. It makes me curious. Has there been a time on your own journey where you've really had to lean into the Lord to walk through shame in your own marriage or pain that's come up?
Yeah. So I walked through a lot of shame before I got married. I struggled with eating disorders and I was trying to, I put it into it became an obsession about my body, right? And my health. And if I could look perfectly, right? I kind of took the hurt that was inside and tried to make myself look
Mm,
better on the outside to maybe make myself feel better on the inside, right? And it was all stemming from this place though of I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever enough. And so God walked with me through that. I mean, thank him so much for just showing me his love. But my husband really, he didn't and I think this is so hard when you don't realize what shame is, when you're not familiar with what shame does and all you're focused on is do
mm,
better, do better, do better, and you're not even aware. That's what he came in with. He came in with so much of this very sneaky, a whole childhood really of sneaky
mm,
shaming, where it was totally you're loved if you're accepted, if you are a good boy,
mm.
if you are nice, if you are making everyone around you happy. And so our whole marriage long, he has
Wow.
been dealing with shame, and it's caused a lot of issues in our marriage. And it's just so sad. Because you're not seeing yourself the way God sees you. That's just
Yeah.
not how He sees you, right? He loves you. He says, "You're my son. You're my daughter," and He just loves us. And I mean, I can only imagine how it breaks
Yeah.
His heart to see us stuck in. It's really a trap from
Mm,
the enemy, I believe, right? And so to shift that and just go into His word and
mm,
see what He says about you. He said, I mean, wow, like He brought you in as His child, and He gives you everything that would belong to, a daughter or a son of the King.
mm,
You have, right? And that's just, it's incredible. And then just ask Him and hear what He says. Like, who am I, right? How do you see me? Sometimes I've asked God that.
yes.
How do you see me today? It is always so healing for my heart to hear how He sees me, because I still don't always see myself that way. His way of seeing me is even more glorious and
So
beautiful than I
good.
see
Ah,
myself.
that is one of my favorite, sweetest questions to ask the Lord as well. And I love that you shared that because He will always show up and answer in the most unexpected ways. And, I found that the Lord would like give me new names and just the way He views us as His daughters so tenderly can reestablish safety in just a moment. I love that so much. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sure that you have seen so much transformation just through the work that you and your husband have been doing, and it's so needed. I think especially for Christian women where, we're talking about shame and these preconceived ideas of who a Christian woman, a Proverbs 31 woman should look like, the role she should play. I could imagine that there's burnout and expectation that so many women you've walked with have experienced, and I think the work you guys are doing is so needed. Women, we're very communal, relational people, and I think back to, the Garden of Eden, where the first time God said it wasn't good was for man to be alone. And I love this space of emotional, spiritual health and relational health because we need to walk life with people. Shame can't really stay, pain can't stay when we're walking in fellowship with another person who loves us enough to not let us stay the same. And I just see you as that figure in so many people's lives who is just saying, like, hey, there's a different way, and giving them permission to just invite God into every part of who they are and in their relationship. And I can only imagine how much freedom and healing has come just in the time that you've been doing this. And I'm so excited for my listeners to just be introduced to you. Where can they find your resources? How can they get connected to your podcast and your coaching and all of that?
Yeah, well, we do on our website. I think everything is listed there, so it's a good comprehensive place to go. It's just called The Way for Love. It's just thewayforlove.com. So I have a membership for wives. It is this beautiful community like you talked about, because I know when I was in the deepest pain in my marriage, I felt so alone. And if I would have had what I am offering wives, my heart would just have been, I would have felt so supported and so loved, and walking through that alone. And so that is a beautiful thing. It's called Restored. And God is just doing beautiful, beautiful things in there. And you are invited. So that the link for that is on the website as well. And our podcast is called Marriage Unmasked. And that's on there as well. And then you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook as well, just at Cara
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm going to
Nitz.
have
So
all of that linked in the show notes for y'all. Please go show them so much love and support. And, before we go, Cara, would you be willing just to leave our listeners with just like a final piece of encouragement or just a little bit of truth that they can carry into their week?
yeah. I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I can say to you is, no matter where you're at, no matter how painful your marriage is, no matter how far gone you think you are, or your husband is, maybe your heart is starting to give up hope, and you are feeling exhausted in your marriage. I just want you to know that God is a healer. He brings dead things back to life. The things you don't think He can do, He will do. And so I just want to infuse you with hope.
That's
And I'm
so
getting
good.
emotional here because this is where a lot of moms feel, right? They feel that it's time to give up. It's been too painful for too long. But nothing is too
Yes.
far gone for God. And He wants to move.
Mm.
So
Thank you, Lord, that you want to move. It's so good. Yeah, so, so good. I'm grateful that his healing presence, his comfort is so available to us. I think we just sometimes need that reminder. And it's so beautiful. Thank you again, Cara, for being here. Your heart inspires to go to deeper levels of intimacy with the Lord. Your passion and your tenderness is so tangible. It makes me want to feel like I want to come alive. Yeah, thank you for letting God use your story to bring healing to others. It's so needed. Yeah, I love that. And again, friends, if this episode spoke to you, please take a second to share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss another amazing conversation. Until next time, keep showing up to the story God is writing in your life, and always keep pursuing truth.